Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the school committee meeting for Wednesday, April 24th. We'll call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll start out by approving our agenda for this evening, and I know we have at least one change, which is to postpone the student representative report to a future meeting. Are there any other changes that we know of?
We did not have a school building committee. It was canceled on Monday.
Okay. All right. Let me just make a note of this, sorry. School building committee. Oh my gosh, all these policies. Where is it?
That's above the policies.
Oh, okay. You need to put my glasses on. Got it. Okay, thanks. All right, so the first item on our agenda this evening is citizens speak. And as always, our policy is that we reserve up to 15 minutes to hear from members of our community who are able to speak for up to 3 minutes apiece. And is anybody here in the audience for citizen speak? All right, so does one of you want to go first? Can you please just share your name and address?
This is such a fancy production here. I've never been to a meeting here. Good evening, I'm Vanessa Foster and I live at 1325 Canton Ave in Milton. I'm here to just take a moment to offer my absolute gratitude to Beverly Ross-Denny on her last night for her incredible service on the Milton School Committee. I'm bad at that, okay. The magnitude of her influence was felt immediately as she began mounting her campaign in 2020, at a moment when we were all feeling isolated and scared. Beverly was so much more than just a candidate. Sorry, Bev. Her vision for the Milton Public Schools inspired a movement. She created a true community of supporters from every corner of the town, and we rallied behind her, buoyed by her conviction that Milton Public Schools really could be a pillar of educational excellence for all its students. There hasn't been a day since that she hasn't worked tirelessly to deliver on the promises she made in that campaign. Through her fearlessness, her grace, her intelligence, her commitment, her ingenuity, her forward planning, and her follow-through, Beverly will certainly be leaving MPS changed for the better. Thank you, Bev.
Okay, my name is Beth Molnar. I live at 14 Westside Road. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 3, and I am also here to express my heartfelt respect and gratitude to Beverly Ross-Denny, a remarkable individual who has dedicated her time, her education expertise, her energy, and her passion to serving our school committee. Bev's been a beacon of leadership, wisdom, and integrity throughout her time on the committee. Her unwavering commitment to our students' welfare, everybody's academic excellence, and overall well-being has been nothing short of inspiring. Whether it was getting us all through the hardest parts of the pandemic, advocating for important curricula that she knew with her professional expertise was the best for our kids, collaborating with the many stakeholders in town and across the state on vital initiatives, or lending a compassionate ear to the many diverse concerns of our community. Bev always showed unwavering dedication to our school district's mission and to doing what is best for our kids. Her kindness, generosity, and genuine concern for others have touched the lives of countless individuals in our town. As you embark on your next chapter of your journey, Bev, my family and I want to extend our deepest gratitude for your exceptional service, your leadership, and your friendship. Your presence will be greatly missed on this committee, but your legacy will continue to inspire it and our schools for years to come. As a parent, an educator, town meeting member, and as your good friend, I would like to express my sincerest thanks and wish you continued success, happiness, and fulfillment in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
So thank you to you both for joining, and this is a moment probably to acknowledge, we do have a full packed agenda tonight, so but want to also acknowledge you, Bev, and thank you for everything you've contributed, and this note and gift is just a token of our appreciation for you from all your colleagues here.
There's Super Bowl tickets in here. The 49ers go back, so that's an argument. So thank you very much.
And yeah, I know, is there anything you want to say? Anything anybody wants to say? I can't really say much.
I think I would echo what we heard today. Thank you for your unwavering dedication and commitment and just willingness to serve. This is something that is not done lightly, and I think you've just been steadfast in your commitment and in your focus, and I appreciate that. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for you. So thank you for sort of paving the way and setting the example of what we could do and accomplish together. Thank you for your dedication.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your mentorship, your friendship over this last year. You know, didn't know you before you lied to me to trick me into running.
You didn't have to add that.
So I was the only one.
You weren't the only one, no, but
Lizzie agreed to that.
you weren't the only one who lied to me. That's fair. No, again, just coming in like a deer in the headlights, not really understanding what I signed up for. You being there to like say, this is what you signed up for. Like these are the things. Like let me help you. Like we'll talking through finance committee or just general school committee things, right? Watching your lead again as you ask questions with intention and from a place of great expertise and knowledge and care and compassion. All of those things are just great to work with somebody. Like all I want ever in the things I do is to work with people who are passionate, thoughtful, and work hard. And those are all things you brought to this committee. I'm extremely disappointed you ignored requests to twist your arm and allow you to run again so that you could be here another 3 years, certainly at least another 2 years with me. But know you will still stay connected to us and to the schools, and it will be vital to kind of how we move forward as a school district and as a community, and just appreciate everything you contribute to me personally, but also to the district as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to take a few minutes just to thank the so many people that were supportive of the schools in general, supportive of our campaign, just dedicated to Milton. There's a lot of people who underestimate how hard it is to work in public education and the sacrifices the faculty make, the superintendent who's working 12 to 14 hours a day plus weekends, and to have the privilege of working with the 5 of you and your dedication and your willingness to serve and your willingness to see beyond what's right in front of you and to be able to stand up when you think something isn't right and do the right thing. And there's also some people here I'd like to thank, and some people in the community that without their support, this would not have happened. I want to thank Vanessa and Beth and the Milton Anti-Racist Coalition for their encouragement to run it all. This was something that I did not take lightly, but I was very fortunate to have people who cared and that were passionate and believed that we could do better than what they saw. I want to personally thank a few people. Chris Hart, who in the darkest moments of my campaign was the one who gave me some of the best advice to keep me going, and advice that I remembered throughout my 3 years, mostly related to do the right thing anyways. Whether or not people are pleased with you, they don't like your position, essentially if you have your North Star, you stick to it. You're not going to win everybody, but you do what's right. I want to thank Karen Spalding and Susan Maselli for creating the first strategic plan I'd ever seen in the Milton Public Schools when no one else knew how to do it. They took time beyond their responsibilities as head of People Personnel Services and the head of the Glover School to actually get this done. It was an immense task, and I'm very grateful because it made a difference in terms of setting the direction for the district that essentially we had lots of good ideas, but not organized in a way that the community could engage. I want to thank Tiffany Guy and Amy Dexter for taking that information and incorporating it into our annual budget, as well as sharing with us the importance of talking about our per pupil expenditure relative to what's happening in the state, because I think it was the first time we ever saw how little we were investing relative to our peers and how amazing our faculty had been in spite of the lack of investment that we have. I want to thank Zadie Rose, Winston Daly, and Selena for the work on the budget when it was really tough and sitting through those finance committee meetings when we were asked not to do the work of the school committee, and their courage to stand up to do what was right on behalf of the Milton Public Schools. I want to thank Louisa at the Louisa Pena Lyons at the Bridging Forward Foundation, Kat DeRoche and Kristen Driscoll for establishing the first Title I tutoring program at the Tucker School. I want to thank the Pierce Middle School students, Regine Jean-Charles and her son Bidiaco Jean-Charles Asare for establishing, for advocating successfully for the reporting system so families had a place to share their concerns about discrimination or harassment. I'm almost done, I promise. I'd like to thank the Select Board for supporting the first restorative justice coach and getting us an extra bus when we needed it and our budget didn't allow. I want to thank Member Loring and Dr. Redden for the Cunningham attic renovation, which gave us some space to buy us some time. It was something that had been overlooked for years, but it took a few people that were dedicated to a task to see it through to the end. And last, but most importantly, Erin Hardy and her family, who, of all of the people that took it on the chin and really were hurt by a lot of this work, when a lot of it may not have been immediate benefit to their family. And I don't know if they ever received a public apology for how they were treated and maligned. And I want Erin and her family to know how much they're appreciated and loved, and that it's courage, the courage that their family had, that makes a difference in places like Milton. And last but not least, my family, my husband, who's put up with a lot of complaining, a lot of no dinners, making me coffee during our Zoom meetings when I was falling asleep, got me the cookies that you all saw me eating during those meetings to stay awake, and my kids who watched those meetings and saw some of the most gifted and loving people in our town, but also saw people who they should aspire to do better than as they grow up. I just appreciate all of you. You've made this place so much better for your presence, and I just look around this committee and see how much it's changed in the last 5 years. And tonight I was told we were going to take a picture, and I think it's probably one of the kindest ways to end my tenure, because people can see how Milton has grown and changed, and hopefully, in my humble opinion, the better. So thank you all for letting me talk for way too long.
It's not your opinion. that's all I was going to say, because I haven't been able to figure out what to possibly try to say, but no doubt about it, like looking at where things were 3 years ago when you got here and where we're at now, it's night and day for the better. And it has been, as has already been shared, it's been that steadfast word is a good word, that your belief that we can do better. So now it's up to the rest of us, the people who will continue on, which may or may not include me, but like
I'm sure it will.
the point of building on what you've been able to accomplish, and that's how we can keep honoring your service. So, thanks. Should we get to work? That would be over to you.
It would be.
Superintendent's
Okay.
report.
I want to start by thanking Bev. Because, we were talking earlier about, every school committee member brings something different, and I just wanted to share that I think your insight and your intellect and your understanding have been really important to me in year one, and I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to work with you. We did a good job.
So first thing, this has been now printed, and you'll have a copy. We are really actively building out our implementation plan. We have an important meeting tomorrow in our last full curriculum leadership team meeting. Remember, that's our 30 leaders. We split into 3 different groups based on the different priority areas. People have been working over the last month meeting outside of regular set meetings to build out all the different action steps and pieces of that. It's really important that as we're doing this, we kind of come back together and kind of coalesce all the kind of various work that's happening with the groups to maintain an overall vision. So that's something that I'm doing both in meeting with the leaders of those groups. In between, tomorrow we will be giving feedback to the different groups in terms of the work that has been created. What can happen in these kinds of processes is a laundry list of things to do without a real understanding of where we actually headed, and having everybody be able to see what that vision is. Like, that piece is really, really important. And we have a whole list. When you read through the priority report, you can see under the future recommendations, we've already got a list of things that we need to work on, we should work on, we want to work on, we're inspired to work on. So between now, this meeting tomorrow, and the end of the year, we'll be kind of finishing that work. I will be bringing that forward to all of you to share. We are also talking about kind of one final kind of move to community, just in terms of kind of engaging and talking more about this work too. We do feel like we have a lot of data from all of the outreach that we have done. So I don't think we're in need of more feedback on that front. But I will probably be bringing a smaller team out and doing superintendent coffees, or I want to kind of push back out into the community again to kind of re-engage. I'm kind of feeling that as a leader. So that's something that I'll be doing in coordination with completing this implementation plan work. So, in a few meetings, I think I'll have more to share, and may even be able to share a draft as we start to get closer to the finish line with that. Okay, that's all I wanted to share on that. MFE Teacher of the Year Awards, you may have heard that our teachers were being acknowledged, our educators were being acknowledged over the last couple of weeks, and I just wanted kind of for folks in the community to read off the list here. It's been really exciting. I was able to attend some of these. It's a surprise to everyone who gets it. And oftentimes they're in a classroom, or they're in their office, or they're somewhere, and their family and the MFE and colleagues and students all kind of push into their classroom, and there are generally tears, and it's really powerful. So this year's recipients are Karen McDavitt, who got the Mary Grassa O'Neill Leadership Award. Bernadette McAvoy is our Pierce Middle School Teacher of the Year. Laurel Bernini is the Collicott Teacher of the Year. Mary McRory is the Tucker Teacher of the Year. Dory White is the Tucker Para of the Year. Geraldine Comer is the Glover Teacher of the Year. Bryn Staker is the Cunningham Teacher of the Year. And Caitlin Plummer is the Cunningham Preschool Teacher of the Year. And so all of these educators will be acknowledged at the MFE Celebration for Education, which is coming up in a week and a half. Does everyone have their outfits picked out yet? No. I'm working on it. I'm not totally there yet, but I'm working on it. But part of that celebration will be acknowledging all of the different the educators of the year. I shared this with all of you, but just wanted to share publicly that Bill Fish, Dr. Fish, was named the Massachusetts Association for School Administrators Middle School Principal of the Year. So that's a statewide award, which is huge. We've shared that with the Pierce community as well, and there are probably things being planned, but there may be a surprise too, to acknowledge that at Pierce for him. So that was really, really exciting to see, and I think reflects a lot on his commitment and the work that he's done coming out of COVID and really kind of getting moving again. And we have Footloose this weekend if you're needing something to do. Friday, yeah. Relive the 80s.
Saturday.
Yeah. So that's my update.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? So we have the revised calendar on here. Is there
There's a motion.
something
There's a motion on
on
the
that,
motions list.
that it has changed that early dismissal date?
Yeah, May 14th to February 12th.
Okay. I'll make that motion to approve the revised 2024-2025 school year calendar with the early dismissal date of May 14th, 2025, changed to February 12th, 2025.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? All right, unanimous.
Can we also do a shout out?
Please, yes.
So for those of you in the audience who haven't seen this yet because we haven't published it, but it's been redesigned by Mark and Anna, and it is a huge, huge improvement. It looks great, and it's legible. It's not that the old one wasn't legible, but it looks really good.
It's pretty.
Oh yeah, Mark, pull it up for people.
I don't think anybody in the public can see that screen.
There we go.
So-
Perfect. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
We have one member of the public here who maybe could speak to it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
What do you think?
It's game changer.
Everybody, look out for the
really is.
QR code you will be able to scan and upload the calendar dates into your own personal calendar.
Oh, get out. Get
Yes,
out. I didn't realize
so
that's what you said.
thank
That's
you
amazing.
to Mark and Anna for introducing that level of sophistication and convenience for our families. We all know it's already hard to keep track of all the dates, so
That's a big deal.
that's
Thank you.
a genius step forward. Yes.
Saved me a lot of time at the beginning of the
Seriously.
And maybe then it can get updated, like if snow days get added, it will just, so
Yes.
it is a great,
Yeah, it's a subscription calendar, so as they
Progress.
add things,
Amazing.
it should show up.
so yes.
Well done.
Thank you for that. Okay, so under the chair's report, there's just one topic, which is our school committee procedural handbook. So in our folder, we have the current version working draft of this document, which, as we all know at this table, we've worked on this for many months at this point through our governance retreats. And what we have before us now is a document that has begun to be populated with the final step before we can officially approve this as a document that's no longer in draft form would be that we've incorporated the legal feedback. Since it is a document with policies and legal references, we need to make sure that everything is aligned, of course, with Mass state law. So our legal team has been working on that. They're continuing to complete that review. But at the same time, recognizing this is our last meeting, full meeting of this committee, which is the committee that has worked to build this handbook, we wanted to make it official as a working draft, at least, so that as we create a new committee next week, this draft is handed over to that committee. Those of us who are here that carry on will continue the process of incorporating legal advice and ultimately finalizing it. But it did feel important to kind of take this opportunity to formally adopt it as is, given this is the committee that created it. So any questions or thoughts on that as a step to take? This is going to be ongoing, and even once we incorporate all the edits that we may make based on the advice of our attorney, it will continue to be updated annually, and because that's a commitment that we've made within the document. So I'll leave that there, but anyone want to, I guess actually I'll make a motion, and then, if anyone wants to discuss, we can. But the motion is going to be to approve the draft Milton Public Schools, Milton School Committee Procedural Handbook pending further legal review. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just want to appreciate you for, we had lots of notes and conversations within the last meeting, and that you then on your own kind of went in and helped clean up to a good extent. So appreciate that work between our last meeting and now, and appreciate the collaboration and all the work the policy committee has done and all those things to help move a lot of these things along.
I think the only other thing I would add is that it's a huge benefit, I think, for folks to come. Just sort of having, the way we operate actually written down in a way that you could quickly wrap your head around it. So I think it's a game changer, and I do appreciate the group process that we've been through and the individual work that has gone into getting it to this point, and it can only get better. So thank you. Yeah.
These new committee members are going to have it too easy.
Too easy. We've made the job way too easy. People are going to be signing up left and right.
We'll just have to come up with some new hazing rituals.
That's right.
But no, it will be great to, even in draft form, to deliver this to our new members next week, whoever that turns out to be, and, provide that continuity with just information, clarity, and this really does come back to you, and your vision for supporting us to hold ourselves to some new standards of governance. This is part of that, so it's exciting.
Agreed.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks to all of you. So, all right, the motion has been made and seconded, so are we ready to take a vote on it? All right, all those in favor? That's great. Thanks, everyone. So the next item on our agenda is we're going to move into our committee reports, and first is Finance Subcommittee report, and I think we have a special guest in the audience joining us to share some information around this item, but Bev, I'll hand it over to you for this part.
Well, thank you, Select Board Member Zulis, for coming to share with us a decision that was made by the Select Board to allocate additional resources to the schools. Is that fair to say? And I'll leave it to you.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you. There are two items, actually, that two funding items that impact the schools that we discussed last night at the Select Board meeting, and we had a vote with respect to a revised town administrator's budget that I'll lay out for you, and that I'll ask this committee to consider supporting. The Select Board supported the revised town administrator's budget, and so town administrator unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, so that's part of the reason I told the chair that I would come in and try to report on what we did at the Select Board. So I have some slides just to give you an update on the operational budget. If you want to bring, I have copies too, if that's easier for you. You want to have a copy?
Those on this side of the table.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. We never had pretty flowers like this when I was on the school committee.
You
It was
didn't
very,
ask.
it was very bare. It was a very bare.
Come on back. Come on back.
It's Beverly's last meeting.
Ah,
Oh, we have these every meeting.
They're chalk. Pass him the bonbons.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You bought these, didn't you? Yeah, no.
oh, well, I'll wait until after. I'll wait and see if you're all happy. And then
Take
I'll-
it back
you're all
until we
happy.
find out what it
Exactly.
is.
That's right. As you know, the budget process that we go through is an iterative, months-long process. Since I've been involved in the last 13, 14 years, we generally budget very conservatively. We do it very deliberatively and prudently so that as additional things come up, we can fund additional items. And that is the case here. For the initial town administrator's budget was based on the governor's budget. The governor's budget, for the first time then that most anyone can remember, actually decreased local aid for Milton. And so we had hoped that when the budget process continued through the House and the Senate, that would be changed. And it was. About a week and a half ago, the House Budget 1 came out, and this is the House of Representatives budget. And so now we have revised, the town administrator has revised his budget, his balanced budget, based on the House 1 budget. And those are the slides that you see up there. You'll see the FY24 cherry sheet, and then the governor's budget, and then the FY25 House budget, and then the final column is the change between the FY25 governor's budget, which we based the initial town budget on, and the FY25 House budget, which is the basis for the town administrator's revised budget. So what you'll see here in the change column is that Chapter 70 money increased markedly by $318,000. And I believe that's because the initial funding from the governor's budget was, I believe, $35 a student, and that was increased to something that we were expecting more of, which is about $104 a student in the House budget. So that increased Chapter 70 money, the school's money, by $318,000. We took a small hit for charter tuition reimbursement, so the net on additional education funding was $273,451. In our general government funding under the House budget, we actually, there was a decrease of about $82,000 for just a couple of items on there. And then if you turn the page, the next material item is the assessments. So ideally, your funding will go up and your assessments will go down. And that's what happened here. Our funding went up, and our assessments, specifically the charter school sending tuition estimate, our assessment against the town went down by $125,000. So the net, which is on the final page, is the net of the total receipts, additional receipts, $190,000, $125,000 in fewer assessments, so that's a plus, even though it's in red. And then, so the net additional state aid is $316,000. So that's the House budget, $316,000 in addition to what the governor's budget was. So how to appropriate the $316,000, what the town administrator has recommended, and what the select board supported by a vote last night, was that $245,000 of those amounts be appropriated to the school budget, which we understood to be the request that the chair had made about a month ago, and that $71,000, the balance, $71,000, be appropriated to health insurance so that we can cover the additional positions that the school funds through that amount and any additional amounts, any additional positions that are funded by the schools. So that's that will be the that's the town administrator's recommended budget. The select board has supported that, and that will. And our hope is, as always, to have a consensus so that the select board, the school committee, and the warrant committee support the budget before we get to town meeting. And the town administrator will be going to the warrant committee sometime next week, I believe. If everyone is in consensus on this, there will be a green sheet, what we call a green sheet, prior to town meeting, so that the town meeting members will receive the updated, revised budget recommendation prior to town meeting, so they can, the town meeting members can consider it rather than considering any change on the town floor. The effective change to the articles would be that the school budget would increase, the school budget article, I don't remember what number it is, but the school budget article would increase by $245,000, and that the health insurance article would increase by that $71,000. So that's item number one. If the school committee would like to support the town administrator's budget, that would certainly be welcome. And then we'll see what the warrant committee has to say beyond that. So that's item one. I can give you item two, which is an update on ARPA funding as well that impacts the schools, or I can try to answer any questions about this update to the operational budget.
I think we should finish this additional
Okay.
funding opportunity before we move on.
Okay. ARPA's additional funding opportunity as well, but we can get to that.
Any questions?
It is good news. It is good news. It is good news. Well, yes, and maybe I get to have a chocolate.
If you do this every month for the next 4 months.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I guess if the town administrator were here, he may request that the school committee support his budget, so that we could,
Yep.
his revised budget, so that we could, again, achieve the goal of having a consensus among the three boards before we go to town meeting. So.
Is there any questions, or we can go straight to a vote? Mike, great. May I get? Go ahead.
Well, I got not a question. So I really appreciate the positive news, the work going towards it, because it started at level service, right? We wanted to get to $1.5 million, $1.05 million in order to cover these positions. We're at 270, 250, whatever, because 75 is going towards benefits, but cover 3 of the positions we desperately need, which we, at this point, identified for the warrant committee, tried to fund through the capital improvement process, all these things we know. So I appreciate the creativity, the conversation with you, with other members of the select board, such as select member Wells, and a lot of people who put a lot of time into these things. I do want to note that we still have lots of other funds that aren't going to be met for this, and I think that's just where we are, right? I certainly don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth and or push away what we know will be really important for our kids but we know there's still a lot of other needs that the district will not be able to have. An HR director, that's still, in my opinion, a very important role. Another reading interventionist for the 5th grade. High school teachers to help with the over-selection of the schools there. Communication specialists to address communications issues. So like all these other things that I just want to make sure we, from a public perspective, know that like this is we are meeting within the middle. We are working magic. Nick being able to find this and other funds in order to get us to where we are has been fantastic to avoid an override. But I think as Member Wells put it very well, like we are going to need an override next year. We need to start working towards that. I think Nick has, the town administrator, not to be too informal, has said that they are working towards kind of creating a longer-term budget plan and figuring out how to kind of get us there next year. But there are lots of other needs. We are still not meeting even despite this very good news. And so just want to be mindful of that even within this vote. And I certainly expect I will be voting to approve this so that we can go into town meeting with a consolidated and fully agreed upon budget between the 3 primary boards. So I appreciate all the work on this so far.
I agree with everything you said, and I thank you for coming tonight to share what the town administrator didn't have the opportunity to share. And I look forward to seeing the planning begin for an override, preferably as soon as the fall, because as we all know, the tape and all the things we use to make this work isn't a healthy long-term plan. And I think the earlier we begin to plan for this, I think the easier it will be on our select board and all the other committees, because it's a big lift to fund a town with such a tight budget. But I think, as we've mentioned before, with good communication and transparency with our community, I think we'll do very well.
Thanks for staring at my face.
With that, no one else has anything to say.
I want to.
What'd you do?
Can I add one thing?
It was off?
Share the screen.
What happened?
Can I just add one thing, because I feel like both your points and Mark's points are so well taken, and I also want to add, just before we wrap up the discussion, before we take a vote, is the appreciation that the town has heard us as far as the dire need for these positions, and we recognize that there are. Mark, you just listed out a number of our unmet needs for the schools, and we also recognize that every other department in town also has unmet needs, and I do appreciate that, and I appreciate that the town administrator, in choosing to allocate these funds to the schools, is indicating that he understands, the select board understands that our kids really do deserve this additional investment. So thankful to the House for restoring some of the funds that we had been expecting, so that we're able to do this. And obviously we'll just continue advocating for the rest of what's also needed. But really appreciate your taking the time to come and fill us in, and just don't take this for granted. Actually, really appreciate it.
Can I make a motion?
Can I get a second?
I'll make a motion to support the town administrator's revised FY25 budget with the additional $245,000.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're on to number 2.
Now we're to number 2. So let's
We're
talk
taking
about
more off that
let's
list.
talk about 3 other positions that we might have some good news on. There are currently 3 ARPA funded school positions. One is a school nurse, and there are 2 adjustment counselors, board certified behavior analysis adjustment counselors. The ARPA grants for those positions was due to expire on June 30th of this year. Those funds are through the county. Those ARPA funding was either through the county or through the town. The county funds were a little bit more stringent in their requirements, and the town had a little more flexibility in its funds. These funds are county funds, and they were due to expire on June 30th, 2024. However, the funding for all of these positions is not expired, is not been utilized. Thank you. And so the question is, how do we try to utilize the additional funding beyond June 30th? So we have requested that the county extend the use of these funds through fiscal year 2025 for an additional year, so that we pick up an additional approximately $90,000 for the adjustment counselors, and approximately $235, about $115,000 for the school nursing support. So this should take the staffing for those positions, as I understand it, through fiscal year 25. So we are hopeful, and we anticipate that the county will extend the use of those funds beyond June 30th. We haven't got the official word on that yet, but we've made the request, and we're hopeful that we'll have the extension of those funds through that period, so those positions will continue. So
just to clarify, I didn't realize there were positions that weren't.
Those are in the level of service, though, so that, I mean, my understanding is that funding would allow for further positions on our list.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Because the funding was due to term out on June 30th. We have now requested an extension
Right, yeah,
of the
it would
funding
just
because there is additional funding available. It hasn't all been utilized. So we're talking about, and now we requested the county, we made the request for those positions. So those funds should be used for those positions. However, this is a bottom line budget, and so that may open up funding for other opportunities for the school committee as well, for the schools as well.
Thank you. That's wonderful news.
So,
Quick question, when will we know?
we hope soon. It's county government, but we hope that we'll know soon. We expect that will happen. We expect it'll happen. We'd be surprised if it doesn't get extended. So you should. I think it's fair to say you should start planning for it, if you haven't already.
Can you restate the amounts?
Yeah. So for the adjustment counselors, the spend has been $286,022.90. What was approved was $376,916. Sorry. So that's approximately about $90,000 by my rough math, right? That's for the adjustment counselors. And then for the school nursing support, the spend so far has been $119,741.31, and what was approved was $235,573. And so the delta there is about, what, $115,000, $116,000? So if we had the extension on those funds, that should hopefully keep those personnel on staff through fiscal year 25. So that.
So just to clarify, we could potentially hire some of those positions, that at least two of them that he listed off in the list, right?
That'd be my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's not a question for me. It's a bottom line budget that you all control, but certainly these positions, if all goes as expected, will be funded for an additional year by the ARPA funds.
So that's through the end of calendar year 2025?
Fiscal year 2025.
Fiscal year?
Yeah, next 2024, 2025.
Next year, essentially next school year.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Have another chocolate.
So
Yeah,
Great news.
thank you.
Really, really good.
no ask on that one, but, look, this sometimes happens. when we go through the budgets, I think it's because we are typically very conservative when we start, and we're very deliberative, and we go through the process, and there are different ins and outs, and so far the ins have exceeded the outs on this one, and so hopefully we can have a consensus among the 3 boards on this. So that's the hope, that's the goal. So, at least my goal.
Restate, really, again, with both those things, really, really appreciate the work done by you, the town administrator, others to get us here. I mean, that is a huge adjustment into what we were expecting as it relates to level service, right? Very excited for everybody at Pierce, all those kids who now have a full team. Very excited for all of our 4th graders. Excited for what other things you and the team identify as priorities out of the rest of this list with those other funds and the other things we can help do.
Yeah.
That is great news for the students and staff.
And I do want to say that you all deserve a lot of credit for the advocacy that you have maintained throughout the process, because that has an effect, and it's important, and it has an impact. And it's not only you. There have been many others in our community who have advocated, as you're aware. Many parents. I mean, I don't want to not include, but particularly we've seen emails from Christine Morrow and others as well who have really advocated for additional funds, and it has an impact. And it has an impact, I think. I don't know whether it has an impact on Beacon Hill, but I like to think it does, and it certainly has an impact in the town. And so you all deserve a lot of credit for it, and hopefully it'll continue to take us forward.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take the box.
She buys snacks every week.
Val
No,
brings them
truly,
every time.
he is a healthy
These are
eater.
open day.
I won't
We need to
tell on
Bring
you.
her to the select board. I mean, just
My
yeah,
daughter's in.
We should be called a snack board.
I
Okay.
keep running into her.
Bye.
she's
Yeah,
doing well.
break a leg. All right, so
We'll delve into the warrants. So we have 2 vendor warrants. First one is vendor warrant number 40 in the amount of $287,917.78, payable on April 11th, 2024. And the other warrant is number 41 in the amount of $877,883.04, payable on April 18th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve both warrants?
So moved.
Second?
second.
All in favor? Thank you.
that concludes your final Finance Committee meeting. You're going out on a high note. This is good. All right, so facilities.
Facilities, we had a facility advisory committee meeting a little bit earlier today. Talked a little bit about some of the old building business things we've shared here before, Cunningham fourth floor, some programmatic things and discussions. Not a whole lot new there to share. Some things around playground improvements and this an idea from Peter and the team of creating kind of a, playgrounds have been identified within the committee as a place that, I think we can do better, provide better active experiences for students. And so the thing Peter has laid out is the desire to kind of create a master plan of like, how do we address this across all the sites? We obviously have lots of playgrounds. They're all essentially approximately the same age. So yes, had a conversation of that and the different groups that potentially have already been engaged and could be engaged to kind of create a holistic approach and a long-term plan so that we're not just doing this as one-offs, but actually have a vision in mind of how we get to the end to kind of give everybody high-quality playground experiences at each of the sites. So that was really exciting, and I think is good work and exciting work for the committee to do even going into next year. We also talked about enrollment projections, and so our kinder enrollment next year is slightly higher and going to need an extra extra strand, and so talking through where is that strand going to go. We have a very large fifth grade, which we know because that's affecting Pierce and reason for some of the positions that we're asking for. So that's potentially opening up space at Glover, because Glover currently has the most fifth grade classes, right? And that's usually how the district has handled this: is one cohort is bigger, that goes to a particular school that has the space. As it moves up, at some point that clears out and makes room for the larger cohort. So it's pretty consistent with what we've done. But just talking through, what are the implications for next year? What are the other options as relates to space, and ensuring we're able to put kids. The issue with that plan is that it doesn't always allow us to put kids at schools that are closest to where they live, right? Because of the space constraints, and those are some of the things impacted. So we talked about those things as well. I think those are the primary things we discussed. Anything else?
Yep, no, that's great.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or discussion of any of that? Okay. So in that case, we can just transition to policy subcommittee report. Anna?
Okay. So for policy, we met about 2 weeks ago. We had on the agenda to discuss the updated residency policy, which we did a comparison of the old one and the new one. There are a lot of great edits to the new one that were made that I hope you can take us through and just kind of provide some context to. And then just then we made a motion to bring it to the full school committee for a first reading tonight. And then we went through section D, like we have been doing for all the other sections before. Dr. Pavlicek created a nice little summary sheet for us and took us through each one. And we also made a motion to bring the updated section D to the full school committee for a first reading today. And then we can, I'll make the motion at the end after if you want, or do you want me to make it?
You
to
can do it
approve
first, and then we
okay.
can, yeah.
Yeah, so do we want to do the second read, get the
Yes.
second reading
For B and
votes out for
B and
section
C.
B and C out of the way first?
So there is a motion to approve Milton School Committee Policy Manual Section B and C as revised. And the list, which I'm not going to read, is on the agenda, listed out with all the changes. And there's also a summary sheet for each one, each of those sections in our folder. And I think the full policies are in our policy subcommittee folder as well. So could I get a motion?
I'll make it.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor of? Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And I apologize for my voice.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think I mentioned this in a previous meeting that we were working on the residency policy and had begun looking at what other districts do. We looked across the whole state and also communicated directly with a number of districts to kind of talk through how they develop their policy, kind of talking about policy versus procedure and how they kind of came to the level of granularity within what they are, how they conduct residency. As you all know, it's been a topic of conversation. It's not just this year, I think. In my understanding, it's something that has been a source of conversation. Not just conversation, but it's been a policy that's kind of developed over time. And so as we've been going through all of our policy overhaul, this was one that we felt like we needed to do more research on to gain more understanding. In that inquiry, we made some changes, some suggested changes to the residency policy, which you see before you. Some of the major changes in this policy, one is the addition of third grade check. Our current policy has 6 and 9, so when you move schools, we're now adding third grade. This was based on our review of other districts. We also realized in reading through our policy that it was potentially confusing for people reading the policy. So for residents to read through this policy, it was a little unclear. So we did take, you'll notice that it's longer now. And I think it's a lot clearer in terms of the why behind why we need certain documents, the process, et cetera. We've also, as you read through this policy, under the Section 4 post-enrollment verification and enforcement, have the property owner certificate, which is one of the ways that people can prove residency. We will be asking people to submit that, and it's not hard to do, but we will be asking people to submit that every year as opposed to just at 3, 6, and 9. The reason behind that is that the property owner certificate is the kind of the area where most of the residency issues that we've confronted have been in the area of the property owner certificate. So,
For those of us who aren't familiar with that, could you share what that is?
so as a property owner certificate is when you're not renting a domicile, you're kind of claiming residency based on someone else is saying that person lives here. So it's not a hard thing to prove,
I guess in what kind? So, for example,
so
my kids
as
live
opposed
with
to
me.
like a tent, as opposed to, it would be like if you had a family member, like a brother that lived in Milton or something, and you said, I live with my brother in Milton, so I don't own the house. None of the regular documents have my name on them, so I can't prove residency in any of those kinds of ways that some people do. You would get a property owner certificate, which requires the property owner to verifies, yes, this person does live.
Okay.
Yeah.
The property owner is vouching for the person
Yes.
who's saying that
Yes.
they live
Who's-
there.
who
Got
lives
it.
at their
Yep.
property.
Yep. So that is one of the changes as well. And then like I said, I think it's just, I think we've got a lot more clarity in terms of the process that we use and and like I said, the kind of why behind it. So I think it's a good policy. We've shared this back with some of the districts that we talked with, and they were potentially going to use some of ours. So, assuming this goes through, of course.
I do have 2 clarification questions if this is the time. It talks about anonymous tips posted on the Milton Public Schools website. And I'm always concerned about what the investigation, I'm so sorry. What does the investigation look like for the person who is the accused? If you could describe that, that would be helpful.
I think it kind of depends on what the tip is, so to speak. So there's not, I think, in terms of checking or rechecking, obviously the first thing that we would do if someone says something like that is go back through and make sure, check the documentation to make sure that we have everything that we need, that is required, make sure everything is up to date. If something is corroborated, for example, or sometimes, a few people in the school will say, oh yeah, someone said this or someone said that, then, then you can see on this what the process that we use in terms of checking on residency, so that they go through the on page 3 are the steps that we would take.
And these are not new steps.
No,
This is
no, we're
what
just-
has been
we're-
happening.
we're
It just
just-
has not been delineated like
We haven't
this
had it
previously, right?
written out like this. Yeah.
Yeah, the only reason why I asked that question is not everyone is genuine when they accuse people
For
of things.
sure, for sure.
So knowing that it
Yeah.
doesn't start with someone showing up at your door is really important. It starts with someone doing some back work. I want the the
Exactly.
public to feel safe in a town where people have called me and said things that were not things that people should call and say. I just want to make sure that we've documented a process that does not discriminate against those who are victims of other people's challenges. There was another thing that and maybe I just want to make sure I understood this right, in terms of what are the exceptions and what are the penalties. So for example, in my case, my home was under construction. So I owned a house in Milton. I wasn't living in a house in Milton. Is that an exception that someone would have to make a request for if they've moved to another town while their home is under construction or the home has been flooded, like whatever that scenario is that makes it difficult? Because my fear is that they could go through this entire investigative process and it talks about the penalty. You can be immediately dismissed from the schools and have to pay. That can be a very arduous cleanup for families. I remember during the pandemic hearing this happen to multiple families. What's your...
Yeah, I mean, I think there are all sorts of, like the story about building a house and, having to move out and then move back in. So we would, we can take those kinds of things into consideration as we're looking at this. The thing that you can run into with, for example, I buy some property in Milton and I say I'm going to build a house and it's going to be done by this date. Residency is about where you're living. So if you're displaced from Milton, is different than if you're planning to but not yet living in Milton. So there are all those kinds of differences too.
But I guess to follow on that, if that nuance isn't written down somewhere, there are families that would be penalized for just a temporary, it's not like there's plenty of rentals in Milton where you can say, well, I'll just rent in Milton as my construction is happening.
There's maybe one.
It's just correct.
There's one.
Correct. There's just not a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
But should you or others involved in this revised policy not be here, doesn't mean that would be the approach to that situation, because it's dependent on the person that's implementing the policy.
Like, do we codify the exceptions? Like
Correct.
The fact that, because this reads very cut and dry
Yes,
in their
it does.
penalties.
It does. Yeah.
And it doesn't give you any autonomy, or maybe it's the assistant superintendent for business to say, I have this, because I have been in meetings where people are like, you didn't say it exactly the right way, so you have to leave, and it's very disruptive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't, we did think about that. I mean, we did try to cover all the situations that we confront, and we do have the exceptions down below under 7.
Yeah, I read them. So it's, but because they're very specific, it doesn't give you the latitude to use your judgment. That's all
Yeah.
because there's going to be something that I didn't think of that wasn't construction, But codifying the latitude is, I think, where I'm going with this, so that people don't use this. If you're in Vermont one day and something happens, that people know that they can use their best judgment and they're not restricted by what is in here literally.
I think what we're talking about is a additional specific exception, which is a short-term displacement of a current property owner or renter in Milton. I mean, there may be a bigger conversation, but that might be something to think about. It would cover the people who have a house renovation where they have to move out for a few weeks or a couple months. If you have a fire in your house and you have to move in with relatives in Quincy while your house gets repaired,
That's probably covered under McKinney-Vento, but
that is different than. I think we all know those things happen all the time. And I guess maybe understanding where that is in relation to McKinney.
Yeah.
I mean, taking on, by choice, taking on a home renovation where you're not able to live in your home for a temporary, that's not going to qualify you for McKinney-Vento.
No, it doesn't. I had a friend who literally was told, you have to remove your child from the district. They had to go to a hearing or a meeting to explain all of this. And I'm thinking, it felt very hard and fast to them because that's what they were initially told. And then once they got in the meeting and they made their case, well, literally, it's not codifying the scenarios because there's always going to be something we don't think about. But literally, it's just like when you write a job description and all other duties is assigned, it is at the superintendent's or assistant superintendent's discretion to make.
I think that would have to be bound within certain parameters because the experience I've had where I've had lots of latitude in places, then it gets really hard to tell people it's not because of some relationship or that person got it, why don't I get this? And then you end up.
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But if you're renovating in your house and you had to temporarily move to the next town over, the house is still under your name technically, right?
But you're not
living there.
You continue to pay taxes.
You
and
continue to
all
pay
that,
taxes.
But yeah, it's not your place of residence for that period of however long time. And then I guess we're also, then are you talking, is it part of a given school year, or are we talking about, 3 years? I mean,
I don't have
So,
an answer. I'm just throwing it out.
yeah.
Because it happened to me. And
yeah,
some people I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good exception. I agree with the idea of like adding that as another section under the exceptions, right? That seems like something that has happened, certainly could happen, seems very reasonable to me to like try and clarify that, codify that, put that under there. I also think we should add some language here that just at least acknowledges McKinney-Vento. I mean, I know obviously that oversees, it's a state law, it overrides any policy we have, but there's not even the mention of McKinney-Vento. I might say something in here like nothing within this residence policy is meant to or would in any way supersede or inhibit student or family's rights under the McKinney-Vento Act. Just something like that, either under the exceptions or another.
I think that was in there before.
It was in the previous, right?
But overall, yes, it is a good new version.
Much more detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can bring this back and do a little bit of,
No, but this is,
Let's
I mean,
tweak on
this
that.
is like the purpose of a first reading on
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
policy when we're not only doing straightforward edits, but rather like really trying to update and improve it. And so that's the purpose of having this discussion. Then you can bring it back for the second reading, at which point hopefully we can improve it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll just say under exception B, it doesn't really seem like an exception, but a clarification of exception A. All right, so I don't know if that just needs to be tabbed over. But that's my
Right. It's like a sub bullet of that point above.
Only other question, this kind of goes back to the item Bev raised around the anonymous tips. Again, I have similar concerns of just like the types of families that would be affected by that. And I don't know if I assume there'd be data we can track to like look at to see like how is this tip hotline being used, right? How often is this ending up in good results, right? And is this becoming like something that people are weaponizing in some way to target others? Because it is, it's disruptive.
that are looking at
potentially
residents,
it's potentially like embarrassing or feels invasive to like have these accusations, questions when you did nothing wrong. So I think that's another piece to think about is how do we evaluate that over time and ensure it doesn't have some perverse effect on, you know, our families,
Yeah.
and making them feel excluded actually from our community.
I agree. It almost puts, I think, the community at surveillance, right? Like there's a feel to it that just doesn't seem quite right. So I think it's important to monitor how it's used so that it's not a way of targeting families for whatever reason you suspect they don't reside because maybe they don't fit a certain criteria that you have in mind as to who lives in Milton and who doesn't. I'm using as nice language as I can to describe that, but I do think that it happens way too often, language that is used to single out people, yes, who in sort of people's minds do not fit the Milton resident type, whatever that is.
Someone pulls up in your driveway
Yeah, to
why
question
you're
to
there.
make sure you're there and that you really live there and that's really your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it happened to us a long time ago when we were trying to enroll my brother-in-law in Milton Public Schools. What do you mean? Who are you? Yeah.
Someone asked me, what's your job here?
Yes.
It's like I'm the wife.
Correct. So anyway, so we want to make sure folks are not targeted unfairly.
All right, so we'll keep talking
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
If not, you'll just let us know how much time you need to, you know, come back with a couple of those changes.
That'll
but-
should be easy.
Okay.
I mean, the question is, do we wait until our next meeting and review it there and then come back, or do we do that full committee? We
for
can do it
the
either way.
policy, bring it back to policy.
Yeah, yeah.
Our policy next meeting is not till like
It's
May
in a
20th
while.
or something.
Yeah.
So,
Whatever you think.
yeah, I think that's fine, right?
To just come back to
Here-
come
to
back
here?
here.
Yeah, we,
That's fine.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So is that okay with you two, Bao, to just bring it back straight
Yeah.
back to here?
Only other question I had, and maybe this is around like the notes or the documentation y'all looked at related to other residency policies. It's just like what is the variation in terms of, I know something that is asked is, are these like checkups? How often, right? We added third grade, right? So it's third, sixth, ninth.
Yeah.
Like, you know, how many districts are doing 3 checks versus 2 checks versus 7 checks? Of just, you know, on the ones we've looked at, I think that data is interesting. If you have that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Anna, do you want to take us through the first readings of the rest of Section D?
Sure. So, here you will notice. So we have a series of policies for Section D where we're approving the MPS version of the policies from DA all the way down to DKC with no edits, and then approving the following policies with edits, DBG to DJGV, which is the Milton Public Schools School-Owned Vehicles Energy Efficient Vehicles Policy, and then adopt MASC versions of the policies from DBC all the way down to DK. That's all I have. And then, as I mentioned, the summary sheet, or Section D recommendations are in there. I believe it should be also in the policy subcommittee folder for April 10th.
One question on the D, just something I just saw. We have DDA, grants or gifts from private sources, that we are approving with no edits, but then we're also adopting DD, grant proposals and special projects. And the note there just said no MPS version more general than DDA. There's a lot of policies, so I can look into these in more depth. I at first thought these were like the same policy. We were adopting them twice.
Yeah, I'm pulling those up.
When I read the note, like in other places where we say like this is, we're deleting one and then adopting this, but it seems like we have both.
I think we're, my recollection, we don't have DD, and it works in kind of coordination with DDA.
Okay.
So there is an argument to just put them into one, which then of course changes the MASC policy, and we're trying to mostly keep the MASC policies MASC policies, as opposed to like something that some future school committee has to like figure out how this Frankenstein.
Because then if the MASC updates their policy, it's easy for us to update the policy.
Ours, yeah.
That's the challenge, yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Okay. Any other?
Great. Once again, thank y'all for, it's a lot of policies.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Yeah, and Dr.
Thank you.
Pavlicek is taking his vacation after having done all this work for us.
Yeah, unfortunately didn't make it down to New Orleans, but
That's right.
no, he came back for family reasons, but yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
next we have just approving our minutes, which is our minutes for the meeting of April 2nd, 2024. Did anyone have any changes or edits to these?
No.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Milton School Committee meeting of April 2nd, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So, next meeting agenda items. Well, the next meeting is next Wednesday night, the reorganization meeting. And that will not be a full school committee meeting where, for example, we bring back the residency policy or have other large agenda items. Do you know of anything that we need to add for next Wednesday night?
Not anything that can't wait.
When is the next meeting after that?
Then we have annual meeting, right? The next week.
Oh,
So
town
it's,
meeting.
Yeah, town meeting, yeah. So it's,
Okay.
Yeah, our next one's the 15th.
yeah.
That's it. 15th is Wednesday.
15th.
15.
Remember your weekend?
Yeah. No. I think
That's possible.
So if it goes six
Days.
nights,
If
which
it went 6 nights, we would have to.
really, hopefully it won't go 6 nights, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's tentative and unless it goes 6 nights, but hopefully it won't go past the first week. Shouldn't have just said that.
Yeah,
Jinx
You
you got wood right here.
Sorry, everyone. Okay. So it's fine. Either way, at next week's meeting, it can be discussed what your agenda items are for the following meeting. In substantive agenda, like for the student representatives, for example, will they be coming back then, or, we can work on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that next on our agenda, we're actually going to move into an executive session. And I'm going to make this motion. I'm going to read it out. So I'm going to offer to make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of conducting a strategy session for contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the superintendent, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, and to return to open session following our executive session. So we will come back to an open session when we conclude our executive session. So if anybody's watching, you may want to stick around. We don't know exactly when we'll be back. And I made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so thank you, everybody. All right, we are back from executive session, and I'll call the regular school committee back to order at 9:29. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion to approve the following changes to the superintendent's contract for FY25. There are 3 changes. A salary increase representing a 3% increase of his total compensation for FY24, this current year. That brings the new salary to $249,260. The second change is to extend the current contract by 1 year and to add language that introduces a rollover of 1 additional year thereafter. And thirdly, we've made the update to eliminate redundancy in the termination language section of the contract. So I will make that motion to approve the contract with those changes for FY25. Is there a second?
Second.
Aw, you should feel special.
All in favor? And great. So I will ask our legal counsel to write that up for us, and we will then have that official contract.
I think we should let Bev be the official second on that. It's her last second.
Fair enough.
Thank
Okay,
you.
for the record,
Your last
Beverly
one.
Ross Denny was the second on that. Okay, so that's great, and I think that's it. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Beverly.
No, thank you for giving